Joseph Lyons was born in September 1879 and died in April 1939, serving as the 10th Australian Prime Minister from January 1932 until his death. He had earlier served as Premier of Tasmania from 1923 to 1928 and was the first and so far only Prime Minister of Australia from Tasmania. He belonged to the Labour Party. In 1929, he was elected to the Australian House of Representatives. He immediately became a minister in the new government formed by James Scullin. However, he resigned from cabinet in January 1931 over a policy dispute, and 2 months later left the party altogether. He and several other Labour defectors then helped to form the new United Australia Party, which elected Lyons as its leader. The UAP won the 1931, 1934 and 1937 federal elections. Lyons died of a heart attack in April 1939, becoming the first Australian Prime Minister to die in office. His wife Annie Lyons later became the first woman elected to the House of Representatives. At the 1931 federal parliamentary elections, Lyons and the UAP offered stable, orthodox financial policies in response to what they branded as Scullin's poor stewardship of the economy. At the outset, the UAP did not renew the traditional non-Labour coalition with the Country Party, then led by Sir Earl Page. The two parties did, however, present a joint ticket or alliance in elections to the Senate. Lyons decided to govern alone, although had he formed a coalition with the Country Party, he would have had over 70% of the seats in the Australian House of Representatives. After the UAP suffered an 8-seat swing or loss in the 1934 federal parliamentary elections, Lyons was forced to invite the Country Party into his government in a full coalition. Lyons followed the same conservative financial policy he had advocated during the Scullin government, cutting public spending and debt. He was a firm, though by no means servile, ally of Britain and also supported the League of Nations. His government tended to support the conciliation of the dictatorships of Germany, Italy, and Japan, that in general historiography of that period has been called appeasement. And its most notorious, most famous representative was the British Prime Minister of the late 1930s, Neville Chamberlain, or from 1937 to 1940. And their goal, as was the goal of appeasers, was to avoid another world war, but he still increased military spending. In April 1933, Western Australia voted overwhelmingly to secede or separate from the rest of the country. However, the federal government refused to allow it to secede because it considered it as unconstitutional. Also, the British government overruled Western Australia. In July 1933, Lyons established the Commonwealth Grants Commission to provide impartial advice about the federal government grants distribution to the states, and it still exists. He was Prime Minister during the Edward VIII abdication crisis of October to December 1936. He strongly opposed the proposed marriage to Wallis Simpson, as did his cabinet colleagues. It is unclear if he was initially aware of how deep the king's feelings were. He later telegraphed the king asking him not to abdicate, and after the event gave a speech to Parliament announcing his regret at the king's decision. Edward VIII reportedly, according to his Wikipedia, biography said that since there were not many people in Australia, the Australian Prime Minister's opinion on the marriage question did not matter. In 1934, the ambitious and talented Robert Menzies entered Parliament and was immediately seen as Lyons' successor. Sorry. Although he denied that he was seeking to displace Lyons. In the 1937 federal parliamentary elections, the government won a third term with 44 of 74 seats in the House of Representatives. As the international situation darkened in the late 1930s, Lyons, a long-term pacifist, became increasingly despondent. Most politicians expected that he would soon be replaced by Menzies, who resigned from cabinet in protest at the government's inaction on the national insurance scheme. On April the 5th, 1939, Lyons suffered a heart attack while being driven from Melbourne to Sydney. He was rushed to St. Vincent's Hospital, Darlinghurst, in a critical condition. By April the 6th, he had already lost his ability to speak and was drifting in and out of consciousness. He soon fell into a coma and died on the morning of April the 7th, which was Good Friday.